Greetings and God bless. I just wanted to share about dealing with government forms. The past year, I've been going through a process, and the forms that I got said mail your responses to this other state. So I was mailing it to the other state, and then when I was talking to somebody, they're like, "Oh no, you don't mail it to that state. You mail it to this state." And yet at the same time, I'm being blamed for not having proper forms and completing forms. And so today I've been working on getting forms in, and the person from the government was like, "Well, I can't see that signature clearly, even though the name was written in. It wasn't it wasn't a contract or anything. It was just some background information." And so, you're expected. I mean, there's this thing about life nowadays is that when you are at somebody's mercy, they expect you to do 110%, 1,000%. But the predator, the abuser, who happens to be like, these are the profile of people in positions of power in the government. And I watch videos about guys in the military, and they think it's so funny when somebody's being tortured. They think it's so funny when their sergeant is torturing them and stuff like that. And I guess that's military humor. I guess that's how you're just there to make money. You're not there to retain your sanity, I guess. And I guess that's acceptable because you're going to have all this prestige for being in the military, I guess. I don't know. I find it unacceptable. Uh, and I guess people in the military will tell me, well, you have to be kicked in the teeth and punched in the face and stepped in the stomach and kicked around 24/7. That's what makes a good warrior. Okay, that's crazy to me, and I don't think that's actually what other successful military campaigns do. But anyway, that is what I notice when you're dealing with the government, and I mean the American government, is they will nitpick you to death, cause you to run around like a chicken with your head cut off, give no assurance, give no reality. Um, and especially if you have like post traumatic stress disorder, just like people who have chemical sensitivity, like a sensitivity to fragrance, if you tell somebody you have a sensitivity in the workplace or at church or something, everybody's going to wear a lot more fragrances. They're going to be doing all sorts of fragrances. I have had this personally happen to me, and I've seen online where a nurse tells her nurse colleagues, "Look, I can't deal with all these fragrances," and they do extra fragrances. Like, this isn't just in the medical world; it's just our world, the reality. Like, humans have become obscene. And it's a miracle when somebody's actually a decent human being that's not trying to torture you. So, back to government stuff. Okay, so you're going to have government forms. Make sure you have the first name, the last initial, because most government people, most employees of the state, don't want you to know their name. They don't want you to know their last name. They don't want any way for you to be able to complain. And when they do give you a number, they don't give you the extension of their phone number. So you want to make sure, what's their name, what's their phone number, what's their email address, what's their fax number, what's their employee identification number, and ideally who is their manager. And just say, hey, if in case I can't get a hold of you, just want to get a hold of your manager, who's the and the hypocrisy of all this is, lately, the past year, I've been dealing with these government workers. They're working remotely, so they're in Timbuktu. Who knows where they are? And they're not getting your records. Things are getting lost, and it's blamed on you. It is up to you. So if you're submitting records, you want to go into whatever office that it is, the government, and you want to make sure. You want to be like, show me what you have on file. And because a lot of records are not scanned properly. Like, that's another thing that the government employee complained to me about. They're like, this is badly scanned and blah blah blah. And I'm like, I didn't scan it. I dropped it off at an office, and I didn't know they were going to scan it. They probably put it through a machine, and there was a jam in the machine. Is that my fault? But that's what these government workers like to do. They know they get to give you hell. They know they get to torture you because you're trying to get something done, and some evil person put other evil people in power. What I realized today is all the trusted agents of the public good are trying to drive you to suicide, to self harm, to do something that gets you into trouble so you're put in prison, so they can get your children, so they can get your property, so they can get your estate, and so that you become dependent on the system. They want to make you, uh, they want to break you. That's what I'm realizing. Like ever since I was dealing with government entities, I was doing everything I could to try to manage things. And sometimes, like, after, you just you go and you approach these government funded resources that you pay taxes for, and you just get, like, in my experience, I got kicked in the teeth, I got humiliated. And when I'm just being earnest, giving the information that's asked of me that I thought was reasonable. And, like, who are the people that work for the government? And I'm sure everybody knows somebody that's the greatest person, their mom, their dad, whatever. And great, praise the Lord. I'm glad, when people have good experiences with the government, with doctors. Um, I think there's something really demonic, like just outright evil. And I think that I'm beginning to wonder if people are selected, um, that are abusers, that are hired in these important positions of government positions and medical positions, because it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how much negligence, malfeasance is done in medicine. And I don't know what the term is in government. Is it malfeasance? When unnecessary obstacles are put in the way of a client, or I don't know what the term is, that when a citizen or a person, an American, uh, but when they're getting all nitpicky. So something I've noticed just in real estate, like trying to rent an office. I'm like, okay, so what are your fees? What's the rent? What are any additional fees? Because I don't know. Like, some places have, you're paying for the cleaning of the whole building, or you're paying for whatever, the set, and I keep on doing that. Done this, I don't know, past year, and no one will tell you, look, this is the rent, this is first and last, this is the insurance, the deposit, this is some uh, application fee, you know, $1,000 minimum. Like, I have to go meet the person and see the office space and declare absolute interest in order for me to get that data. And even then, I don't necessarily get that data. I have to get, like, I have to, again, like, I will say, can you send me the lease? Can I see the lease? Before I even see the place. No, they only will get you the lease when you have uh, said, okay, I'm ready to sign. And, like, number one, leases are sketchy. But I'm like, if this is a contract that I'm beholden to, why am I not given time to consider it? Like, when somebody's attorney has spent a month working on that lease, why do I not get a month to read that lease? I didn't compose that lease. That lease is not in my benefit at all. But I mean, the nicest real estate people won't give you that information until you're there, until you're right there, until you're, like, signing things. And I'm just like, you know, like, not everybody is prepared to do huge financial commitments, and realtors are just like, oh yeah, you must have $1 billion to spend on me right now. you know? And I don't know. I mean, I like if if the client dilly-dallied about paying, the real estate agent would have no problem sending you to collections. But it's like there's no recourse of the end user when it's real estate or doctors or government stuff. Oh, somebody would be like, well, you could do small claims court. Small claims court, I think, only like pays you for like $1,000 or something like that. And all of these things are more like have a greater value. And to get even that $1,000, you go through a lot of grief. So it's not even worth it. And that's why these places are so despicable. Even nice people. I'm just like, just get front up front here, like so I can plan. And that's the thing. Like for instance, real estate agents, they won't tell you until like a month after you've been like trying to get the information. And so you're just spending money because you're like, well, I don't know. I guess it must be just this rent, and then you find out it's like 4 times the rent, 3 times the rent. So anyways, I guess like there's this assumption that everybody is borrowing money from everybody. I don't like to do that. I like to stay within my budget. So, um, but that's, the point is when people in a position of responsibility are abusive. And that's why there's so many military men who are committing suicide. That's why so many men are committing suicide. That's why there's so many women who are trying to be men and children trying to be the opposite gender and, being gay and whatnot. Um, Everybody's so twisted. And I really feel like it's this consumer culture thing. Like parents are more concerned with keeping up with the Joneses than they are quality of life. And it's almost like the 50s. Uh, I mean, in a way, it seems like a good time. Like people were living within their realm. They weren't traveling every weekend to internationally or even nationally. I mean, to go on an airplane was something you did once a year, maybe. But your family lived nearby, so that's who you're going to visit on Thanksgiving or Christmas. But like now, everybody's thinking that they're some movie star, the kind of lifestyle that is Telegram worthy or Instagram worthy, rather, is like you have to look like a movie star, your house has to look like a mansion, and everything has to look highly produced. And like that's unreasonable. Like I decide if you are going to be an influencer, you don't be a parent and don't be like all these million other things that you're trying to juggle. Like just be an influencer, you know? Um, so you retain your sanity because I think people are so externally identified and so overstimulated. They're not even being human beings anymore. People lack emotional intelligence and they're abusive, and it's all for that paycheck, and it's all for this like leverage, it's all for this kind of status that they think they're better than other people because they've got highlights and their nails done and a fancy car and a fancy home and a status husband or a status wife, but they're not happy. And so then they're doing drugs or then they're doing porn or they're just um, workaholics or something like that. And I feel like we've lost our way. I feel like America has lost its way. And then everybody starts to hate everybody else and um and what like and people, okay, so I'm going to volunteer to save the animals or I'm going to volunteer to save people in other countries. And the thing is, I'm like, if you're going to volunteer to help somebody, look in your own backyard. There's a lot of homeless people, like homeless Americans, like that's another thing. Um, people are like, oh, we got to take care of these immigrants. Like, how about taking care of that homeless person that's been living on the street, in your city for the past 10, 20 years? And people are like, well, they don't want to, be cared for. I think what needs to be figured out is what's worked in other cities, because not every city in the world has the homeless epidemic that we have now. And I think it's engineered. Cities make money off of a homeless crisis because all this money's sent to them from the federal government, or it's voted in by locals, and then everybody takes the money for themselves. It's not used for homeless people. It's like a money laundering kind of a thing, and people are greedy, and people are like, well, I gotta buy my mansion or my chalet somewhere, and that's why I'm not too keen on people who are like doing all this conspicuous consumption right now in America in 2023. Like, people are doing all this travel and stuff like that. I'm like, where are you having all this money? Like, shouldn't you be like hunkering down, or instead of sending money to PETA or whatever, like help your neighbor. Um, of course, it's easier said than done, but that's something I wonder about. Is like people are donating to these large companies, these large fundraising companies, and when you look at the CEOs are making like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and that's ridiculous. Like, when you know if you're spending 300,000 to pay your CEO for PETA or whatever, um, like, couldn't $300,000 be used for something? And like, I guess the notion is like you have to pay your CEO so they mingle with other millionaires, so those millionaires will keep donating to your foundation. And I'm like, because I used to volunteer at a meditation center, and they were voting to do something like that. And like these meditation centers were like, they did not have 100,000, 150,000 to give to a CEO. I mean, that's probably, I don't know. I mean, it's just like a lot of people would go to that meditation center and not be able to pay. They would volunteer their time or something like that. I just think it's like stealing, like when a um uh like a nonprofit, so-called nonprofit, spending like hundreds of thousands on their CEO. I don't know. I just don't. And I really hate the canvassers, the people who are on the sidewalks. You go to a quaint part of town, and then there's a canvasser, make you feel guilty. How dare you not talk to me? Because I want to shake you down for some money. I hate that. I hate that. I hate that. In the cuter parts of town, that's where you find the jerky canvassers, these like spoiled rich kids who, I don't know, like they're like, you owe me money, like, uh, so life is hard enough. I don't need to be insulted and humiliated and menaced when I'm just trying to enjoy a little walk somewhere. And when I'm doing my best to submit forms to the government, I really find it extremely frustrating when, like, something nitpicky is going on, like with the government person saying, well, I can't read this signature. Since when? So this is like a medical signature. Since when have you ever seen a doctor's signature to be clear? Since when, like, are people unable to read the name of the practitioner clearly? Like, um, I just think like some government officials, they enjoy toying and torturing the people who are going through an application process, and their bosses probably know it's wrong, and it's like a secret society, and you cover for the criminals in your club. And there's just you just have to grit your teeth and bear it. And I'm like imagine you're doing your best, and you've got no options, so you're doing what you can, and let's say you're not functioning well, and then you've delivered fairly well, and then like the person's like, but this is on Xerox paper, it's not on, fine grade paper. And so they're picking on you about something you've never heard about. Like, I was never told that a signature has to be perfect, um, ever in all of my government. Like, when I'm getting somebody to give background information and they've signed a document, no government official has ever complained about my background documentation having a unclear signature. So, like, uh, what I had to tell myself is, God tells us in Scripture, "Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord." And that's what we have to keep on reminding ourselves when these malignant narcissists are in positions of power, whether it's in the doctor's office or whether it's in the government or whatever it is, the school board or the city council or something like that. And it's like these super mean, psychotic, toxic people seek those positions, and somehow they get those positions and they keep those positions. And they're harmful people. They're torturing you. And what does that do when you're being tortured unnecessarily, unfairly, unjustly? What's the reaction that any normal person would have? Oh, I'm being tortured. I didn't even do anything wrong. I'm I'm agreeing that this documentation needs to be given, and I'm giving you this documentation, and you're telling me, oh, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, even though there was no disclosure. Oh, you can't have a bad signature. You can't have a lightly written signature. You have to be able to see every letter of a signature in a document. Like, so it makes you a little like vengeful. So, um, yeah, I mean, there's people who are demonized and satanic and evil, and we need to just trust um, in the Lord, and I know that He will deliver at the end. And the irony is, this government person is saying, I'm a Christian. A Christian wouldn't do this kind of thing. A Christian does not toy with somebody who's vulnerable and has a need, or what a true Christian doesn't. Like, there's a lot of fake Christians. That's why so many people hate Christianity, because there's a lot of bad people who call themselves Christian, who think now they get to yell at everybody, yell at complete strangers, and tell them they're evil, which is basically the pot calling the kettle black. So I just wanted to give you a heads up, if you're dealing with the government, especially, and they're trying to get you to do documentation and stuff, ask for the name of everybody, the name of the manager, the employee identification, and the parameters of the documentation that you're supposed to get. And and I guess, like, when they start trying to torture you, say, well, according to the information, according to this form, it doesn't say that I have to have a pretty signature that's, a Palmer exemplary handwriting calligraphy signature. So what can we do now? Like, you got to learn how to deal with really evil, psychotic, torturing, like, people who love to torture. You got to learn how to deal with that if you're dealing with a government person. And I really think it's despicable when the army or military folks thinks it's funny when people are being unnecessarily tortured and tormented by people in authority or by bullies. And I mean, yeah, I guess you laugh it off, but uh, And I guess because you're a slave, when you've joined the military, I think you have no way to leave or something like that. Um, but for those who are not enslaved, I don't know. I don't know if that's, but if, I mean, I don't know if calling the military a slavery kind of situation, but I think it is, right? You go to jail if you leave early. So that's slavery. Um, so yeah, I guess if you've consented to being a slave, you make fun of being tortured and tormented unnecessarily, unfairly by authorities and bullies. But those of us who have not, who are still embrace our God given freedom and declare that we are free, um, like this kind of behavior is unacceptable. And you just got to be prepared for it. So thanks for watching. God bless.